and the man who covers the Giants for ESPN. Nice enough to join us now, Dan Graziano. And Dan, a fan on Twitter just gave me the best first question for you. Are the Giants going to win more games in the regular season than they just won in the preseason?
We're trying to figure that out. How many teams in history have won more preseason games than regular season? Surprising number. I think the Lions were 4-0 the year they went 0-16. So the 5-0 record obviously means nothing. I would say, yes, they'll probably win more games in the regular season than 5 because I just feel like the schedule's not too tough. I think Tom Coughlin is a coach that can help prevent things from bottoming out, as we saw last year. And it can't be as bad as it looked in the preseason. It just can't. I mean, somebody's going to catch a pass at some point. I mean, complete offensive incompetence. I just don't think it's something we can expect to see for 16 games. I think they're going to take a little time to get the passing game going at the beginning of the year, and they'll probably be better offensively in November than they are in September. But I don't think it's going to be as bad as it looked in those preseason games.
All right, so how bad is this offense, though? I mean, how much should we believe what our eyes are telling us? Because they look disorganized, discombobulated, out of sync, whatever phrase you want to use. How much is going to be translated to that Monday night against the Lions?
I think they're going to struggle at the outset, and I think the reason is not the scheme but the personnel. I mean, if you really look at it, there's nothing at tight end at all. At wide receiver, there's Victor Cruz and then a lot of question marks. I mean, is Ruben Randle really going to make this leap they expect him to make in year 3, or is he going to continue to be the guy that doesn't run the right route? You know, is Odell Beckham Jr. going to get on the field? And if he does, is the fact that he didn't have a training camp his rookie year going to set him back? Beyond that, it's Terrell Jernigan and a bunch of guys that we know. Is Rashad Jennings going to be able to be a 16-game starter at running back? Another question. The offensive line is loaded with question marks, and to me, Michael, I just don't see how they can expect to get good, positive, satisfactory answers at all of those spots. Even if Jennings surprises you and Randall surprises you, and they both have great years, that still leaves a huge number of question marks on the offensive line, at tight end, at the other receiver spot. So I just think there are too many questions for them to have answered in one off season and one season, and I think that they're going to struggle, especially early on.
That's on Dan Graziano, who covers the Giants for us here at ESPN. Now, Dan, they're all saying the right things publicly. Eli's saying it's gonna work out, and Victor Cruz says we're going to be fine. You're in that room, though. Is there legitimate concern that they are behind the 8 ball on this, that they don't look good?
They have to be confident, because if they weren't, then my goodness, I mean, how do you go to work? Everybody goes to work every day thinking it's going to be a good day, or else why are you doing it? So they have belief. Eli Manning believes that he can be successful because he has been in the NFL, even though he wasn't last year. I mean, he still believes it can turn around and that he has the ability to do it. So I think there are concerns in the room about this is a work in progress, and how much at the beginning of the year is it going to be difficult, and how much are we still learning on the fly? I think they believe they've had some successful plays in practice, and that they think if we can start clicking on some of those in games, it's going to look better. I think they're convincing themselves that it's going to be okay. And what you and I are talking about here is personnel deficiencies. Those aren't the kinds of conversations that people in these locker rooms have. They're not going to sit there. Victor Cruz is not going to sit around and go, well, Ruben Randle's not good enough, and Will Beatty's not good enough. These are their teammates. And you've been around enough teams and professional athletes to know that that's not how they're functioning when they're making their plans. Now, could they end up in a quiet moment thinking that during a tough time of the year, or looking back over a tough year? Absolutely. But at the outset of a year, there is optimism, there is hope, and there is a belief in themselves that it's going to be okay. Tom Coughlin today said, did we really have a preseason game where we sat back and threw the ball? No. He said, and the reason is we wanted to dedicate ourselves to the run game, because the run game was so bad last year that it affected our balance and led to turnovers. Now, that sounds like rationalization, but that's what's going on. They're trying to look for the positives and the things they've done well, and if they have to lean on the run game early on, they feel like they're in better shape to do that than they were a year ago.
All right, from what you've seen, and you've seen it all throughout the preseason, the discombobulation of the offense, is it because of the personnel, or is it because Eli's just not grasping it?
No, I think it's personnel. I think he hasn't had Beckham. They've had Jernigan in that outside receiver spot, and he's a bad fit there. The pass protection has been shaky. Will Beatty didn't play those first 2 games, and then he kind of looked shaky when he came back. They've had turnover at guard already because of injury. They have a new center. So I think it's personnel related. I think Eli Manning can figure this out. From what I understand, I'm talking to Jeff Saturday, who's one of our analysts. I see him up in Bristol from time to time when I'm up there doing the Insider Show. He said he played in Green Bay his last year, and so he knows a little bit something about the system. And he said it's not hard. It's very simple. The concept, once they get the terminology down, the concepts will be fine. They'll be able to run it. But the question to me is, do they have the right people to run it? And as of now, I think they're too short in too many areas. I just don't think they have good enough players from an NFL caliber standpoint to run really any kind of NFL offense right now, let alone a new one that they're all learning together.
All right, then realistically, I mean, what's the chance of seeing an Odell Beckham Jr.? And when we finally do see him, he didn't get any play time at all in the preseason. So realistically, how good can he be?
And worse than that, no practice time. I mean, He hasn't gone through a full practice team since OTAs in June. So, yeah, that's the thing. Even if he hits the practice field Monday and practices all week, can they throw him in a game as a starting wide receiver on September 8th? I don't see how. As a rookie, they can do that. Now, can they find a role for him? Can they use him on punt returns? Can they spot him in a little bit on plays that they know he has down? Probably, but he's going to have to practice before they'll even think about putting him in a game. And right now, I don't think you can count on him for the opener. I think they're going to have to mix and match with what they have at receiver and work him in slowly because he's a rookie who didn't have training camp, and that means, he's going to have to get those practices that he missed, and he's going to have to get them during the regular season now. It's a big problem. They drafted him thinking he was going to have an impact right away and believing they needed him to, and they are going to have to play around with the Jarrell Jernigan types in the meantime while he gets up to speed.
All right, what's the deal with Hynoski and Manningham? They both came out of yesterday's game injured, so what's the deal?
Yeah. Hynoski sounds okay. I think, he said it was a contusion of the shoulder, so it doesn't sound like there's any kind of, tendon or ligament damage, which is good. They're not worried they're going to lose him for a while. Manningham, he hasn't shown much. He's had knee problems that have lingered since his San Francisco time, and he hasn't looked good in preseason. Coughlin said a few days ago, we've seen some spurts in practice, but it hasn't translated into games, and he'll get one more chance. And that chance was last night, but he only played 4 plays before coming out with the calf injury. So my guess is whether the calf injury is serious or not, it was serious enough to knock him out of a game in which he needed to perform well in order to make the team. I would be surprised if he's on the roster.
All right, so Hynoski, it's not a serious injury, but is it enough of an injury to save John Connor?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They only want to keep one of those guys, and if they're worried about Hynoski for September 8th, do they have to keep 2? Do they have to keep Connor? Now, they haven't used the fullback much, just in terms of volume in the preseason, but they do use him a little bit, and you saw, obviously, they used him in that great big goal line package they ran where they were running Connor and Hillis there 4 tries and finally getting into the touchdown last night. So they do have a need for a fullback, and if Hynoski can't go week 1, that may necessitate keeping 2 fullbacks on the roster when the final cuts are made tomorrow, which is going to, mean tough decisions elsewhere. So it sounds to me like they feel good enough about Hynoski that they won't have to do that. But we'll know by 4 o'clock tomorrow whether they're telling the truth.
Dan Graziano, good stuff. Thanks for popping on with us.
Anytime, Michael.